Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us again in this last Breakfast and Learn of 2023. As usual, I'm going to share my screen in order to present this session, and then I'm going to give the floor to Begonya, who is already here to do this presentation of today. So as you know, we are the TechSam network. Our focus are new technologies in mental health. And what we try to do, I hope you can see my screen. Yes, you do. As you know, our focus is on bringing research and innovation in the mental health and technology area forward and closer to the society, to people, and also to administration and the public sector. And we also pay close attention to doing this path the other way around. So having a close active listening to the needs of society, especially of people with mental health problems, and trying to bring these needs closer to the researchers and also to the innovators in order to create innovation based on needs. And today, this second part of the path is the one that's going to be highlighted with the help of Begonya Nafria. So thank you so much. As you know, we have per now 49 groups that are members of our research network, coming from 23 institutions. And we will be announcing pretty soon that we are going to have some new members. So we are really happy that our family keeps growing and going strong. And thank you so much for being here and for helping us with this growth. Just as a quick reminder, in January, we will have the first Breakfast and Learn of 2024. So this Breakfast and Learn story keeps on going. And we're going to have the participation of Mauricio O'Brien, who is a communication design and fundraising and crowdfunding responsible at Nanoma. And he will be talking about funding through crowdfunding and match funding, talking about models and phases, and also strategy for health projects. So you can see that the subjects change quite a lot from December to January, but the focus is always tech transfer and also how to make our knowledge, our scientific knowledge, to get closer to the market and to the people. But about today, we have, as I was explaining earlier, we have Begonya here with us. She's a patient engagement responsible at Hospital Sant Joan de Déu in Barcelona. And I will tell you a little bit more about her background. So first, we had this brief introduction, then we will have Begonya do her speech on how to improve participation of affected people with mental health issues in research projects. And then we will have a final Q&A in which you will be able to participate. You can start writing your questions or commentaries right now using the chat platform at Zoom. And you can also participate at the end by talking or also by the chat, and then I will be reading your questions. If you want to ask in Spanish or in Catalan, that will be allowed, and I will be translating, since this session is meant to be fully in English. So regarding Begonya, thank you so much for being here. So as I was explaining earlier, Begonya is patient engagement in research coordination at Hospital Sant Joan de Déu in Barcelona. And she's...
You are muted, Iris. We cannot hear you.
Oh, I don't know how that happened. Thank you. Was it really long that I was on mute?
No,
or...
few seconds.
Okay. So, as I was saying, Begonya is a member of the European Academy of Patients. She's coordinator of the European Network of Young Patients, and she also coordinates Kids Barcelona and Share for Rare, a project that's focused on developing a digital platform in order to facilitate research in rare diseases. She has had, as you can see, a long experience in the field of patient and family participation in research initiatives. And her areas of expertise are focused on the participation of pediatric patients in research, and specifically in the field of clinical trials. I don't know if I missed relevant information, Begonya, if you want to add something. Otherwise, the floor is yours. Thank you so much again for being here and for sharing your knowledge on patients' participation in research.
Great. Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much, Iris and Victoria and all the colleagues of the XXIV XXIV for the invitation to be today with all of you. As Iris mentioned, my role at Sant Joan de Déu Children's Hospital is to coordinate a department that is fully devoted to involve patients, in our case mainly children and young people and caregivers, parents, in research and innovation projects. Also, we have the responsibility to lead at institutional level at Sant Joan de Déu Research Institute a strategic plan to incorporate the voice of patients, families, and society in all the activities. And XXIV XXIV, it's one of the projects that it's part of this big network of entities and initiatives under the umbrella of Sant Joan de Déu Research Institute. And for me, it's a pleasure to share a little bit part of my expertise today, and hopefully you can take some key messages to incorporate in your daily working day in your projects some of these ideas and initiatives. I'm going to share my screen and let's start. If you can confirm that you can see the slides. Perfect.
Yeah, I confirm.
Great. As it is anticipated, the topic of this presentation today is basically to share with you some tips about how we can improve, or basically how we can make feasible the participation of people, and people means in some cases patients with a condition, in other cases means the public, in research projects. Something that for me it's really important, and for me it's probably the first key message, it's to express to all of you the need that research institutes, we have to make closer research to society. And society, of course, in one hand, it's the people that can benefit from our projects. But in any case, it's a matter of social commitment, to be closer to the society, to educate and to inform what means research in the field of health, because at the end, what we do now in research will impact in the future the people that are involved, of course, in the projects, but in general, the society. And specifically, talking about pediatrics, that it's my main area of expertise, what is important is that this investment to the research now, it's an investment to have, of course, a future healthy society. Sometimes the people that it's not working with this group of population, they are not enough aware about the diseases and the conditions that they are living with. And it's a reality that we have. There are many conditions, in some cases chronic and degenerative diseases that affect children, and there is a big need of more research. Basically, we are working in pediatrics with rare diseases, and only 5% of these diseases, not only the ones that affect children, in general, also talking about adults, only these 5%, they have a targeted treatment. It's not probably a curative treatment. It can be palliative, or it can be addressed to manage the symptoms of this group of population. But what is important is the need to do research and the challenges that we have. Because when we speak about rare diseases, one of the challenges that we have is that we have a small sample of patients. Diseases can be very heterogeneous and they impact a lot the quality of life of our patients. And in some cases, we cannot, of course, understand what means live with a disease, because the people working in research, we are far away from this reality. We don't know what means live 7 days, 24 hours with a disease. And this is the first key message. It's so important to work closely with our target population of our research projects, because it's the only way to really understand how we can benefit them with our research. But the most important thing is what are the unmet medical needs that they have, and realize if we can address a little bit these unmet medical needs and improve their experience and their quality of life when they are in a research initiative. My second point is about the rights to participate, specifically in children's. We have the Convention of the Rights of the Children that was published by UNICEF in 1989. It's a very young convention, but in any case, puts on the table, and it's not a convention that all the countries at the global level, they endorse. This is the reality, but most of the countries around the world, they endorse this Convention of the Rights of the Children. And there are two important rights that we need to consider. The first one, it's the article number 12, that it's the right to express their views. Even they are minors, they have the right to express their views. And there are another article, that it's Article 24, is that they have the right to access to the best standard of care, talking about healthcare. And in this sense, when we don't have a targeted treatment, it's so important to consider that research, at the end, in some cases, it's a standard of care for these patients. But there are many other regulations, not only addressed to the minor population, to children and young people. There are the human rights conventions, and there are other regulations that at the end are helping the people that we really believe that it's possible to do patient-centered research. These regulations, they help us to ensure that there are frameworks that can support our model, because sometimes we think that the best approach is to take decisions on behalf of the patients to protect them, but it's the opposite. We need to work together. They need to be partners of our projects from the very beginning, because it's when it's more relevant, when we take important decisions, in some cases about the research design, and involve them along the whole process, because in some cases also we never take into account the patients or the societies or the society at the end of research, that it's when we need, of course, to communicate the outcomes of our projects, even if they are negative, because always we don't have, positive outcomes of our research. Another important tip or recommendation is share with you the meaning about patient involvement, because in some cases we think that it's an activity that we can do in a temporary moment, as I said, at the very beginning, at the end, along the research project, but it's not the case or the model that we want to promote. Patient-centric research is the research that from the very beginning until the end involves the patients. And we will talk about this afterwards, but the patients, it's not only, a small group of patients and, from a specific target of population. We need to have always on mind which is the diversity that every disease entails, and also the design of a research project, because if we are working in a research project that it's international, it's not a positive approach, incorporate the views and the opinions and the feedbacks of patients from one country that probably it's where the academic institution or the research team it's leading the initiative. It's so important that you understand the patient involvement in research as a scientific discipline. It means that we need to identify where the patients, they have a key role, which is the best methodology to involve them, and how we can translate the outcomes of these activities with patients into the research project. And something that is so important is that you understand that the value that the patients provide is unique. We cannot, as I said, take decisions for them. take decisions granted for them, because usually what we are doing is incorporate a bias in our research. And only one example to demonstrate the value of the patient's contribution to research. In this slide, you can see a picture of a young boy. It's an American patient with a Duchenne disease. This kid was involved in a clinical trial that requires, in the US, travel to another state along 96 weeks, long distance, long time in the trial. And this experimental treatment initially was designed in the protocol to be administered by an infusion. It means, every week to have the infusion in the arm, it's painful. And at the end, only one family, in this case, the parents of this kid, they went to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the regulatory agency of medicines in the US, to ask about if it was possible to offer the option, instead to receive the treatment by an infusion, to use a portacat. It's a central, line that is less painful and more comfortable to the patient. And this question was discussed in the regulatory agency, and nowadays this treatment, this clinical trial, offer the two options, and it's the patient, of course, with the family, with the parents, that they can have the decision about which of the two options they prefer. And this is the real meaning. Ask to the patients about how we can do a better research for them. The next tip, it's about this concept of patient centricity. Of course, it's good for the patients. It's no discussion on this. It's good for the project, because if we do a really patient-centric project, we can have the right moments in which the patients, they can contribute and provide an added value. But also it's good for the sponsors, for the research team, whatever, the experts, the professionals that can be behind of the project, because it means that we are doing a better research for the patients. And it requires to change the perspective, to have a new paradigm, to conceptualize, to design, and to execute our projects. And there is a metaphor in this slide that I always want to share, because it's so common that usually we expend a lot of time designing the bridge, the project, whatever the initiative, but not enough time sometimes to thinking in the people that in this case they need to cross the bridge. And this is the perspective. Try to be in the other side, closer to the patients, thinking with them and incorporating them as a part of our team, because it's part of the success about the project that we will design and execute. Some tips about how to involve, in this case, children, young people, but we can extrapolate and translate to any other groups of population or people to be involved in science. We need to be transparent and not have objectivity. The people designing the activities in which the population can help us to improve research, we need to have the right position on this. We don't need not to be involved in the discussions. We need to help to design the best methodology, but it's so important to have this objectivity. Another important point is to have in mind the special needs, mental health conditions, cognitive impairments, people that probably they have some limitations in regards, the capacity to see, to listen, whatever. Everybody, as I said, have the opportunity to be involved. In some cases, when we speak about pediatric patients, if for the disease or for the age it's not feasible, always we will have the caregivers, usually the parents. The same in some cases of mental health conditions. Always there is someone that is close to the patients that can help the professionals to incorporate their needs and opinions in the design and the execution of research. And this is the mindset that we need to have. Always it's feasible, and we need to have the right means. And in some cases, these special needs, If we have the right means for the involvement, the right methodologies, it's feasible. We cannot exclude a group of patients because probably they have, a visual impairment. There are other ways not to cover these special needs. Something that we need to take always into account is that we need to have an ethical perspective to involve the patients. This means, as I said, transparency. This means explain the project. This means require the consent, protect the privacy or any other right that affect the group of population that we need to involve. Another point is the conflict of interest, because you know that nowadays regulatory agencies, funding organizations, many different entities, and also, of course, research institutes, we are promoting these activities, this new model to do research with the patients and the society. But of course, we need to be sure that there is no conflict of interest. We cannot have in the same table a patient that probably is involved in a regulatory activity with a regulatory agency of drugs at the same time that it's involved with the research team. We need to consider this. Another point is, this has been discussed for many years at national and international level, it's the compensation or the reimbursement. We consider the experts, the people working in patient involvement in research, that we need to compensate the people that it's helping us to include this patient perspective in our initiatives for their time. Is the same that we do with professionals. At the end, they are providing an added value to our project, and they, of course, they cannot have, expenses of travel, accommodation, or whatever will be required. And this is something that it's in the process probably to be regulated. There are some initiatives that at least what they are looking for is to try to standardize a rate, a fee per hour to compensate the participants in these activities. And finally, choose the best methodology. And this is not trivial. This is really, really important, because it's not the same in both children or young people or adults, or as I said, people with special needs. And in some cases, I have seen a lot as a methodology surveys or questionnaires, because it's easy, we can send to the participants, they can complete, we have some data and we try to translate into the research project. But usually, this is not a very friendly method from the research perspective, because it's so close, the process, to collect the feedback from the participants. And also in some cases, like children, they don't like surveys. They prefer not to speak and to participate in first person, have a dialogue, and help the people leading the initiative to translate their needs and preferences into the research project. As much participatory the method, the better. And it's a key element to decide which is the best method to collect the feedback from the participants. At the end, what we are doing with patient involvement, basically, it's to design qualitative research projects. It means that we need to move from a hypothesis and objective of our research, thinking the methodology, thinking the participants, execute the activity, and of course analyze the data and the information that we can collect. Specifically talking about clinical studies, that probably it's one of the most complex research initiatives. In this screen, you have some ideas about what can provide the patients along the different stages. Again, I'm going to reinforce the message that I have mentioned previously. As sooner the better we can involve the participants in research. It's the better for our project, because some decisions are taken at that moment and it could be so difficult to be adjusted or modified after. It means that we need to listen our patients or the group of people that it's going to be the target population of our project. These unmet medical needs are so important. Listen also about the standard of care that they have, because everything in which we will ask participation to the participants in a research project will be on top of this standard of care. And sometimes we are very worried about the quality of the research, to have a lot of data from different sources, from the participant, from the caregiver, etc. But this is a lot of burden, and sometimes what we are doing is to make difficult this project for the recruitment in some cases, and secondly for the retention of these participants, because also we need to have in mind that there are research projects that they last years. And in this sense, if we have these early discussions with the people, the patients and the caregivers, probably the design will be more acceptable from the perspective of the patients. And here in the slides, some ideas about the role that the patients can have in the case of a clinical study. Talking about methodologies that I anticipated before, that usually questionnaires or surveys are not friendly, at least for the young people, that it's my area of expertise. Here in the slide you have other ideas of methodologies, focus groups, interviews, patient journey, advisory boards. There are many different methodologies that are more closer to the experience, make more feasible and easy the contribution to the patients, and of course allow to you to get more qualitative information for your project. And I want to highlight one specific methodology that we are doing in complex research projects, such as the clinical studies, that it's simulation. Because in some cases, when we do these activities, even if it's a focus group, an interview, or whatever the method, basically what we are trying is to collect opinions, experiences, feedbacks, but everything usually that we are discussing about a potential project, it's hypothetical. They don't have yet sometimes the experience about what we are talking about with the patients or the caregivers. And with simulation, what we can do is to replicate this experience before really the project will be executed. One example, imagine in a clinical study that there is a complex and a long medical visit, that on the paper, because everything can be easily included in a paper, it works. We do this activity, the other one, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, what we have is a schedule that the professionals and the patients, they need to follow. Sometimes, such as it's organized in regards to the time, in regards about also the information and the participation that we are asking to the patients, sometimes it's not feasible. And the only way to check, beyond, of course, to ask for the opinion to the participants, it's to do a simulation to replicate this specific scenario and see how we can improve or adjust it. In terms about how we do these activities, in some cases we do face-to-face. Of course, the human, touch, it's an added value for some methodologies. But in some projects, if they are international and we want to make it comfortable to the participants and avoid travels, etc., we do virtually. And in other initiatives, we do blended. At the end, my key message is to think specifically in the project, in the participants, in your activities, and design the right plan to do the patient involvement from the beginning to the end of the project. Every project is different because we are going to work with different conditions, different groups of populations, and there is no manual or a guidance to say, okay, always for this condition, this is the best methodology. It's not the case. And I think that it's so important to think from the very beginning in the project and to conceptualize this patient involvement plan that I want to speak afterwards. And of course, if you do these activities in a virtual format, use digital tools that can help you to make more interactive the session and to create a nice atmosphere to the participants, because in the first session, of course, as you can imagine, probably is the first time that they are together. And I think that this atmosphere, icebreak activities, etc., are so important, because at the end, they will discuss and share information that it's very personal. Another key element that I want to mention to you is the cost. Of course, think, design, execute, and assess activities with patients requires to have professionals, requires to have resources, because if not, it's not feasible. And this is also something that usually requires that every organization, every team that is leading this project, think from the very beginning which are the resources that you need to really do a meaningful patient involvement or people society contribution to your projects. It's so important because with resources it's so difficult. You will have limitations for many activities. And this is only one example. Again, going back to the clinical trial setting, it was a study done in the US, collecting data of clinical trials, not in pediatrics, in general, in which the patients were involved. And at the end, the analysis about the investment that was done get the result that you have in the slide. For $100,000 American dollars of investment, the expected net present value, let's say the return, the savings, it was around 50 million. It's so high, the revenue that you can have, at least in this field, because in some cases, if we don't design the right project, it has problems, as I said, in terms of recruitment of the participants in the clinical trial and in the adherence. Sometimes we need to stop the trial. Sometimes also we need to adjust the clinical trial protocol and do amendments. And this is a lot of money because it requires to pay big taxes. And at the end, the savings are, of this magnitude. But beyond all of this, that it's, for me, numbers and money, what is really important, it's not to speak or have as a perspective to analyze the benefits only about money, the return on the investment. What it's important that you have on mind always is the return on the engagement, how we benefit the patients. They will be less time in the hospital. This is a very important benefit. We, with them, design the right tools to collect the patient-reported outcome measures, patient-reported experience measure, or something that now it's so important from the regulatory point of view that it's the patient experience data. Let's do it. This is, for me, the most important perspective, not only the money, because we need money and resources, but also how this new approach to the research finally will impact in the participants of research. As a tip, number 9, the topic of diversity. Sometimes it's easy, involve professionals or patient experts, people from patient organizations, because they are closer to the research teams, they know about the importance of their involvement. This is the easy way. But the real world, it's beyond, the people that it's really, empowered and it's very close to the research setting. And we need to have the right means and capability to capture this diversity in the participants that will be part of patient engagement or patient involvement activities. It means consider, all the diversity that will entail the specific condition that it's addressed in our project, the specific population, etc. It means consider, many elements. You have some here in the slide: ethnicity, gender, geography, socioeconomic status. This is so important because, as you can read in the slide, clinical trials or any research project, it's not a privileged opportunity for a small group of people, and we need to work on these regards. I have mentioned that patient involvement activities are like a qualitative research project. We need to think, of course, in the number of participants, in the sample that we need to have, but also in the criteria or the elements that they need to accomplish to be sure that this is a small number, because at the end we cannot have hundreds of patients helping us to design and execute our project, but at the end, this small number will represent the real population of patients living with this disease. And this slide, this is one example about how we are organized in regards of pediatric conditions. From Sant Joan de Déu, from 2017, we coordinate EYPACnet. This is the European Young Persons Advisory Group Network. That it's a network of youth scientific councils that are working in different pediatric hospitals across Europe, that we are connected and we work in common projects. This example that I refer in this slide, about to capture participants and the diversity, in this case from the geography, from the country where the patients they live, it's one of the assets that we have with this network, because if we are working in a project that requires young people from Norway, the UK, Spain, or Italy, the network is there and can help us. And in this sense, everybody in their area of expertise have the capability to reach networks. There are networks working in mental health conditions at European level for pediatrics, for adult conditions, for many other therapeutical areas in which we can have this capability to work from a diversity and cultural point of view, that it's really important for research, because the experience said to us that the opinions and how everything is organized from the standard of care, sometimes it's very different from one country to another one, even all we are European countries. And this is only one example about how you can cover this diversity perspective in your initiatives. And this is the specifics youth council that we have at St. John de Déu Children's Hospital. In this case, as I said, for every project we think which is the best way to involve the people, the society, or the participants. This is only one example for the projects that require the experience to live with a disease, but not a specific one. And I have some examples afterwards. We involve this youth scientific council. Also, we have a youth council, for some specific diseases, and we have the same version with parents, because for us also the perspective of the caregivers is so important. For me, the key message here, as I said, it's think in the project, the disease, the target population, and see how you can achieve the best group of participants to help in your project. Usually when it's a focused disease project, we build a patient advisory board, a PAP, that it's traveling with the research team along the whole project. And some examples and recommendations that probably are important for you are the next ones that I'm going to share with you. This is a guidance that was published last year, and that we co-created with patients organizations, professionals from Asociación Española de Pediatría, and also professionals from RECLIP, the Spanish Network of Pediatric Clinical Trials, and Pharma Industria, the companies, pharma companies working in pediatric clinical trials, explaining the benefits of involving patients and caregivers along the drug development process in 8 therapeutical areas, because still it's a challenge working in pediatrics in the research of new treatments, because we have challenges. Some they come because the clinical trial protocol exists in the adult setting, and it's mandatory to do the same study in the pediatric population, and it's not, adjusted or designed for this population. Of course, the consent or the assent of the minor is a challenge, and this is an area in which it's so important to work, not only in projects related to drugs. The recruitment is challenging, the formulation of the treatments the same. There are many areas in which it's so important to work from the very beginning with the patients and the caregivers, because at the end, everybody, we have the same objectives. It's so important to do the research based on the needs of the patients, providing this best experience possible, because in some cases there are areas that are difficult to be modified, but always there is a room for improvement. And at the end, what we are looking is to execute projects with quality and scientific excellence that will provide good results at the end. And in this guidance, we draft 8 different recommendations that at the end provide tips to help research teams, to help pharma companies, whatever the leaders of the research projects, to incorporate the patient perspective from the very beginning until the end. You will see here, the first area of recommendation is about these unmet medical needs. The second one is so important, it's to create educational materials and informative materials that can be understood by the participants in our research. Everything about dissemination of research and science, how we can involve participants in the design of protocols and the informed consent of the minors. The way in which we disseminate our projects to make easy and closer the way that the participants can look for this information. These slide summaries that at least in clinical trials are mandatory at the end of the study. We need to do this return to the patient and the society about the research outcomes in a format and with a content that can be accessible for them. How we can do a better process to recruit participants, and at the end create these networks or database to be sure that the research teams can be closer to the patients or the society to be involved in the projects. Another example that we have done at Sant Joan de Déu level, and also it has a European version because also the content is in English, it is guidance that we created with our youth council, with the Kids Barcelona Council, to provide recommendations in regards to the content and the format of the assent of the minors, because we receive still documents that are impossible that a teenager, because in Spain it's mandatory with teenagers 12 years or older, the request of the consent. We receive these long documents that they don't read, they don't understand, they have in some cases 25 pages. This is not the purpose of the consent process, it's to inform, not disinform. And with them, we analyze different examples and we created this simple, very concise guidance with recommendations that it's so useful to create these documents. At Spanish level has the endorsement of the National Regulatory Agency, and at international level has the endorsement of EUPATI, the European Academy of Patients. We have created also cartoons, comics, to explain in a format that can be closer, in this case, to the teenager population, the concept about what is a clinical trials, the benefits and risks, and other different elements. At that moment, we have the resource translated in 9 different languages because colleagues from other hospitals, they requested the Creative Commons version of this cartoon and they have translated into other languages. At the end, it's to, as I said, to cross the bridge, to work together and to listen which are the needs of the participants. Young people, that they don't read, they prefer a cartoon, a TikTok, a video, whatever the format, but usually not a paper copy, leaflet or resource that requires that they will read the information. We have done serious games like this one to explain in an easy way what is a clinical study, the difference between phase 1 or 2, and many other elements. It's a serious game because, of course, everything is from the content perspective scientific, but also the environment and the look and feel of the serious game. It's based in doctors that are real in the hospital and the facilities, etc. We have created with patients and parents this welcome kit, because we saw that in some projects, basically the academic ones in which the resources are sometimes scarce, that we wanted to offer to everybody the same level of information and educational resources. And in this case, in this welcome kit, we offer a booklet explaining what is a clinical trial, explaining which are the different professionals working in our clinical research unit. We offer a patient diary, because it's important to provide, a resource to collect any information about side effects or whatever. And also we have a small piece of gamification that it's this passport that help us to anticipate what is going on in the next medical appointment. And of course, when everything is done, we put an stamp to the kids explaining, okay, this part of the journey it's done, let's prepare the next one. Also, we work in other kind of initiatives with the society, the patients and the caregivers. The Share for Rare platform was a European Commission granted project that still it's working in our institution, that help us to do collaborative research with patients, collecting clinical data, quality of life data. It depends of the project, different information that help us to know better this disease, to describe the natural history of the condition, to create patient registries. There are different goals in every project, but what we saw is that there is a lot of information that we are not going to have never in our medical records for these patients living with rare diseases. And secondly, it's a challenge, as I said, do research, because it's, a small number of the population affected. And if it's, a project led by one or two institutions, of course, it's challenging to have a meaningful sample of patients in our projects, and we need to work collaboratively with the patients and the patients' organization, whatever they will be. This is another example of an informative resource that we did with families for our biobank, in this case to promote the donation of biological samples to be used as a control group, because it's so important to have also these samples for research. And specifically talking about the dissemination of science, and at the end of the journey of every research project, that it's when it's finished and when we have outcomes. From May of this year, we have in our facilities in Sant Joan de Déu Children's Hospital in Esplugues de Llobregat, and a small, let's say, museum with the name Agora de la Ciencia, where we have different digital resources to explain and specific groups of projects and the outcomes that we have. And this is a very nice opportunity to make closer the results to our families when they visit the hospital. You can see here a photo that shows different digital elements. It's a lot of videos, infographics, etc., to show I'm finishing, it is. To show to our patients the outcomes of our research projects. And to finish, my last message, it's so important to plan and design in advance the patient and public involvement project that you want to do for your research. It requires time to think, of course, taking into account the disease, the participants, the diversity, everything that we have commented today. And there are here the 10 tips that we have explaining along the slides. Happy to answer any question or comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Begonya.
Leave the slide with the 10 tips. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Fran. We will be sharing afterwards the video and the presentation. So. Well, thank you so much. Keep thinking about some questions. We already have 2 on the chat that I'm going to read first. And then if someone wants to intervene and say something, then it's more than allowed. So Maria Portella said, thanks for the talk. What do you think works better, to contact patient organizations or to have a selected subgroup of patients within our clinical settings? What about their training to truly participate in the design and further steps of a given research project?
Okay. In regards of the first question, it depends on the project. Imagine that it's a project that you only will involve patients from your institution. Of course, the easy way is to contact your colleagues. They will help you to identify the patients, and you will create this patient advisory board or group that will work along the project. If the project, it's beyond, the scope of your institution, because it's multi-country, multi-site, whatever the format, the key way usually to work is with a patient organization, but always, in both cases, take into account these tips about diversity. Consider if you need a gender balance group, the age. There are different variables to select, the right representatives about the diversity that entails the disease. And in regards of the second question, I didn't include it in the slides because it's something that usually I take for granted. I'm sorry. The training, it's really, really important. You cannot put in some, discussions or activities, people that they don't know about research. You need to prepare them for this, because if not, they are not going to feel comfortable, and you are not going to have, a meaningful activity to collect their feedback. The training, it's key. And in some cases, patient organizations are doing training, but you are responsible of a research project in which you are going to involve patients or the society. You need to be sure that the training that you need for this activity, it's covered. And sometimes it's the pre-activity to start to work involving the patients. You need to explain, if you, for example, you want to review the consent process, you need to explain which is a consent document, which is, the regulation that it's underneath, whatever they need to know, because what we need to consider is that society is naive in science, and they don't know about what we are talking about with them. They have a lot of knowledge in regards of their disease, but they are naive in research. And of course, training, for me, it's a must.
Thank you, Begonya. So then we had Meritxell Soria, who was asking, do you have a patient commission for all the projects or clinical trials, like other commissions as teaching committee, external committee, etc.? Or do you think that it's better to have different type of patient commissions depending on the project or clinical trial? I think that the second option would be better, but it's not the easy way.
Yeah, I didn't say that was easy. It requires, time, dedication, and the right experts, because sometimes it's done, as I said, with a survey to check the box, and we said, okay, we involve the patients. This is not what we do. We need to provide meaningful feedback, and this means training, prepare the right participants, think which are the right participants, as Meritxell mentioned in the chat. What we have as a stable or permanent commission is the youth council that I mentioned, 20 young people from different therapeutic areas, different ages, the many different variables, and the group of parents. But if we need to work in a specific, let's say, clinical trial, we cannot do it with this group, because probably we have only one patient from oncology. If the study is in oncology, it's not meaningful. We create for every project the right group of participants at hospital level, national level, or international level. It's not the easy way, but it's the right way.
Yeah. So it takes the hard way to do it. Andrea Mestre was also participating through the chat. She said, thank you so much for this presentation. You already mentioned this issue, but we would like to involve patients with the role of investigator during the design of the intervention. However, we have some doubts on how can we manage this at the ethics committee level. Could you provide us some information about it?
Yeah. This is something that it's different at country level. For example, in the UK, that it's a European country that they have more expertise in patient involvement. It's mandatory to go to an ethics committee for every activity that you do, because they don't differentiate between, let's say, an interventional or research study and patient involvement or patient engagement that, as I said, it's more qualitative or opinion research. They don't differentiate, and it's mandatory. In Spain, no. In Spain, you don't need to go to the ethics committee, but it's a good practice to inform. And of course, this will be part of other activities in your research. And if you have planned from the very beginning, when you submit to your ethics application of your clinical study or whatever the project to the ethics committee, you need to inform that you will involve the patients. And good practices, even if you don't go to the ethics committee because probably you don't want to do it or it's not requested in your institution, you need to manage properly. The contributions of the patients are anonymous. You need to have a consent. At the end, we need to protect the rights of the patients. But in Spain, in general, it's not mandatory, but it's a good practice. And of course, it's important also to educate and to train the ethics committees, because sometimes, they think that it's enough with the line member, because that the regulation that we have in Spain requires to have a line member in the ethics committee. But it depends, and this is something that also happens at regulatory level. Probably this line member, this person doesn't know anything about the disease or, the kind of project that we are going to execute. And it's difficult with only one line member to have this assessment perspective from the ethics committee. it's a challenge there. We need to educate also the ethics committees about the benefits and how to do patient involvement in science.
Yeah, so it's a work in progress.
Yes.
Go ahead, Marta.
Hi, thank you for the nice talk. It was super interesting. I'm super interested in participatory research. I think it's very important that we have them, and it's also quite complicated. In any case, I wanted to ask, is there a checklist where we make sure that we fulfill the basic needs in order to say that we do participatory research?
Yeah, it's that for this kind of research, there is no regulation, let's say at national or international level. It's not under the umbrella of the biomedical, let's say, legislation in Spain. And also in some cases, the ethics committees, they treat in the same way. And it makes so complex, no? What you explain in terms of the ethics committee's approval makes so complex. And now in a project in which the ethics committee, to have the consent for an interview, they need the signature, the original signature. They don't recognize that it can be done in a digital way. And I think that there is a lot of education to be done, no regulation, and what you need to be based it's in good practices. I can share you by email if you want some guidances about participatory research, and base your project in the good practices published by others, but there is no standard. What we have it's also some tools to assess if it's done properly at institutional or project level, and sometimes this helps also to have a picture about if your project really fills the pillars or the principles of participatory research. But it's still an area in which I think that we need to do more research, because this is something that also it's a pending subject. Do research about how to do research with the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Begonya. So if you can share this document with me, then I will share it with all the participants. Perfect. So that we can all benefit from this shared knowledge. So it's time. I think it's already 10:01. Thank you so much to all of you for your assistance and for being here and for your questions. If some of you have to leave, you know that this video will be recorded, so you can check these last questions. There was one last question that was written previously that I would like to ask to Begonya, and it's about if she thinks there's something specific about mental health that should be considered regarding when we want to involve people affected. So just this past question, and I repeat, if someone needs to leave, this will be recorded, so don't worry, and thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Iris, for the question. This is an area in which I think that it's more needed to do research and activities. I did some research about specifically the involvement of young people in mental health conditions, and I only found some initiatives also in the UK. There is one initiative led by the Oxford University that they created a youth council only with participants that they are living with a mental health condition. But still, it's an area in which we need to do more research, in which we need to promote more actively the participation of people, because it's a challenge, as you can imagine. And sometimes in these conditions, and the same in general in pediatrics, is that the adults, we take for granted the decisions, we think that are the right ones, and it's done. And I think that it's important, this tip that I mentioned, that when it's feasible, we need to involve in first person the participants. I can send to you some reference about these initiatives in the UK, but it's an area in which I will be happy if any of you have interest to work with, because also at the European level, and it's a request from the Regulatory Medicines Agency, there is the interest to promote this specific involvement of vulnerable groups, because it's not the easy way, of course, it's more challenging, but they have the same rights, and we need to do it.
Thank you so much, Begonya. So we know there are some experiences here also in Spain. We have Fran Eiroa also that joined the meeting, that is also doing a lot of work regarding this site with his research group. but there's a lot of work to do. So, well, thank you so much for committing to this work and to spread the knowledge, and also to keep on working to build more knowledge on this area. Hopefully we will grow from here, and in a year or a couple of years we can invite you again and share some new insights regarding this matter. But for the time being, it has been amazing hearing you and sharing so useful and important knowledge. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing all these resources. And afterwards, we will be sending the video, the presentation, and also some information that Begonya will share with all of us. Thank you so much. Have a nice week. Have a nice holiday. And see you next year.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Iris and the team. See you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.